7:30 on Monday, July 13th. So it's my pleasure. All right, everyone. It's my pleasure to call to order the legislative session of Swarthmore Borough Council. In fact, the only July session of Swarthmore Borough Council. It's good to see you all of you who are here. It's good to be in Swarthmore in July. It's good to have a roundabout that actually goes round about. And I'm sure some of you, all of you, I hope, have gone roundabout, and sometimes people have gone round, about, and about.
Some people stop at the roundabout when they should.
But they're learning. We are all learning. So with that, let me first turn to the consideration of our council meeting minutes. First, public comment. Are there any members of the public who have comments for Borough Council? Any thoughts to share with Borough Council about any matter that might come before us? Any public comment at all? Hearing none. Jane, am I right? We're skipping the next item. Council meeting minutes. You've all received by email copies of the minutes of our last meeting, June 8th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move.
Second? Second. Any comments, corrections?
Since I was not here, I didn't see any issues.
All right, with that abstention, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next, consideration of the bids for the construction of Town Green. As you recall, when we talked about the Town Green project, we were going to solicit bids for the overall project, and I think there were a few separate line items that were going to be broken out. Let me call on our mayor, Tim Carney, to report to us on the bids that were received so we can figure out what to do.
Well, I think the timing issue is obviously an issue on the whole project. We only received one bid, and I think the one bidder knew they were a single bidder, but that they're here and there. And the numbers were not where we believe they should be based on the cost estimates we've got from two different cost estimators. And we think that the numbers were high because of the abbreviated schedule, the desire to finish the parking lot by Labor Day is being sort of cast in stone, the whole thing. And we think that led to a lot of overtime and double time and things like that, which caused the numbers to go up to a point where nobody involved in the project believed it was an appropriate number for the work that was to be done. So we discussed this with the Centennial Foundation and with Jane, and with where I think that what we would recommend at this point is that the bid be rejected, and that we take a few weeks to reassess things, to talk about it with some other different people, talk about the one bidder that we want to have, find out where the sort of holes were or whatever, rebid the project for to get the bids back in September, and then think of this as a fall project. This is a little less than ideal because of the impact it'll have doing the construction work in town in the fall is less than desirable. But I think the reason that we got the number that we did get on the bid was because of trying to do it in August. As you're probably aware, and David, I think David Grove can attest to, probably 2/3 of Delaware County is being paved in August.
Yes.
And we think that the paving numbers were obviously very high. But we're optimistic that the project can still happen. The Centennial Foundation is still in full support of it. There's no question about taking their money back or anything like that at this point. So we're looking to push ahead.
Any questions on that? Tim, I have a couple questions. When you say the bids were higher than expected, 5%, 50%, double?
25%, almost 30% higher.
So that was quite a
significant. Somewhere in $250,000.
And when you say the timing, was it the completion, a quick completion date, or was it the fact that it was August construction?
Well, both. I mean, it was really the short timing to Labor Day. And we were only asking for the parking lot to be finished, but that apparently was the big issue.
And so that time pressure wouldn't affect October?
No.
And is there any weather problem with October?
Well, not in October, certainly. And we can't predict the weather. I can say that in the last 10 years, we only had 1 year out of 10 that was a difficult time in November for this kind of construction work. But typically, what we saw with the roundabout, for example, was that the asphalt plants closed down in December. And that's one of the reasons that we pushed that back for the way we did. So no, I don't anticipate that.
Any other questions?
I do. In rebidding in the fall, is it your intent that it still be rebid with the same start to finish time period?
No.
So we do have to look at the fact that the parking lot will be offline for a longer time than we had hoped.
It could be. I mean,
Okay.
we don't necessarily know. I mean, we haven't had the discussion with the bidder at this point. But it's, from what we understand from just talking to people on the street and finding things out, it seems that everybody was so busy, that was really the issue.
Right.
Whether or not it's really 4 weeks or 5 weeks worth of work, that came more in a vacuum, that amount of time from the cost estimators who weren't applying the specifics of late August to the whole.
Right, I wasn't sure whether they were all busy and so they couldn't actually put enough staff, the crew on, and in the fall maybe they can put the crew on and we can still get it finished without overtime.
I think
in the
so. I
same
mean,
time frame.
One of the things that I understand has happened in the industry is that, in a downturn, because of the downturn in the past 8 years or so, there are less of those contractors actually out there. So when they're that busy, then they get, the way the marketplace works, they get more money for their time and they, fills it as it goes.
So Tim, we did put time constraints on the initial bid. If we're going to bid again in the fall, we would put expectations but not constraints. Would that be a
That's the-
fair way to
I
say
think
it?
so.
We'd like to get this done,
Yeah.
and then hopefully that will draw more bidders to the process.
Any other questions?
I assume it's not possible to tell from the bid submitted how much of before the add-ons for other work, except for the paving base repair, which is relevant to what I'm going to ask you about, is how much of the $755,000 is for paving the lot.
Public bidding doesn't really work that way.
I know, but-
We don't get our hope is that in these sort of post-mortem discussions that we're going to have with the contractor, we can find that out. I will say, David, that all the numbers that we saw in the extras were about where we expected them to be. So in other words, the breaking point was not in the things that we had broken out as specific items that we could sort of keep track of earlier. The break was in the overall job. We expected that 755 number to be around 5.
It's just that if the lump sum, any significant part of that is for the actual paving, considering what we're paying to pave 4 streets, that's an astronomical amount of money for paving.
There's a lot of curving.
Well, okay, I'm trying to get at what is.
I can let you know. I can't tell you right now,
It's
but I can
not
let you
literally
know
just
how much.
paving.
Well, I'm
How
asking,
much?
that's my question, if we know.
Right.
I can tell you from the cost estimates that we got where the cost estimates actually broke it down into the various aspects. I can tell you
Okay.
how much of it we anticipated was paid.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I have to say, I was a little confused by the bid package myself, whether one of the last items in there, which was the base repair, was in fact the entire paving job, because you wouldn't do that as an alternate. So
It was done as an alternate because it's an unknown. So in other words, they didn't, until they actually dig up the parking lot, they wouldn't know how much base repair they had to do. That was my understanding.
We should talk about that, because you don't usually bid it that way, then you bid a lump sum cost, so you're not, we'll just talk about that. So I was a little confused by that as well. I think we should try and clarify that.
I have one other question. Does the current $755,000 include Massey Burke for the rammed earth? I know there's an alternate for if it isn't rammed earth doing the stone veneer, but is her
No, her
separate
number's
figure?
on top of that.
Her number's on top of that. How did her number compare to the stone veneer alternate number 2?
It was about $10,000 less.
hers was less.
So just the email that Bill Cumby sent, he was saying that he was hoping could start in September, didn't say when, completed by November 30th, so.
So it would mean that next month at our meeting, we would be in a position to be looking to get.
You can go this week or you can go this meeting or next meeting to get the authorization to bid.
And that's just a straight offer. Is there any reason to delay that?
No, maybe a motion to reject the bids and then somebody else could make a motion to re-advertise.
All right, if there are no other questions, there's been a recommendation that we reject the bid, and so it's council's role to act on that. Do I hear a motion to reject the currently received bid for town green?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that bid is rejected. Is there a motion to authorize the rebidding of the town green project?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
And that's approved. Anything else on the town green project? It's good to see the council is so interested in this project. It's a terrific project. We're enthusiastic about it, but we're also careful stewards of the budget. So on to other matters now. Environment. Lauren?
I don't think I have anything to report.
All right. Finance. Michael?
Borrowings from it. Should be fairly quick. First, going over the financial report for June. It looks pretty straightforward. Hopefully people had a chance to take a look at it. Looks like for the most part we're pretty much on budget through the midway point of the year. And as of June 30th, 2015, the cash balance was $2,471,571. And again, pretty much things seem to be going as expected as you look at the numbers. Any questions? No? Okay, moving on to bills to pay and wire transfers to ratify. I'd like to make a motion to approve transactions to ratify of $4,495.26 and bills to pay of $327,508.06. Are there any questions or comments?
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none, the motion is to approve the bills to pay and wire transfers?
Yes,
To
transactions to ratify.
Wire transactions to ratify. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved.
And the only other thing I would say is I was planning on having a finance committee meeting this month, but in light of talking to Jane and the budget and where numbers are, it doesn't seem to make sense. That will happen in August. I don't have the date in front of me, so we will not have a meeting on the 26th of July. And we'll have one in August. Not exactly sure what that date is, but the fourth Monday, 7:30 a.m.
In August, I'll distribute the budget schedule.
And then we'll be ready to start the budget season in earnest.
That's it.
All right, next, general government. David.
Ralph, we did meet in June. We essentially had mostly one topic. Jane, you probably have more details since we met. I don't know if you want to take the floor or...
Well, no, I mean, I think we had two public meetings about the project, one at David's committee meeting and then another one on an evening meeting. And I would say we had pretty good turnout from most of the people who will have a sidewalk to be installed. And the engineer met, I think, privately with all of them about their various concerns, a tree, drainage, whatever that might be. The fire company came to the second meeting. They had concerns. I don't know if anybody's seen the plans are posted online, but there's a recommendation to narrow the street at Harvard and Chester Road where there's going to be a flashing beacon. And the fire company thought it would be problematic for their equipment to get dry. So I think we agreed to do some kind of real life test of how that would go. And I think probably your committee needs to meet one more time to finalize some decisions.
Some of our open-ended
Yeah,
issues.
open-ended issues.
So just to recap, is it Dartmouth Ave we have most of the, or no, Harvard Ave, we have a lot of the residents turn out.
And Chestnut.
Chestnut,
Yeah, so it was interesting to have that much back and forth, and Sarah
Sarah.
was fabulous.
Yeah.
She was willing to go,
Tree by tree.
literally,
Right.
to talk to each homeowner about their particular concerns. And I will say, when putting sidewalks in sounds very simple, and we had probably 8 locations, and now we're down to about 3. But when it comes to actually dropping a sidewalk on someone's lawn who hasn't had a sidewalk previously, you do get lots of small issues. So I thought we vetted it very well.
And one thing that's interesting is that PennDOT now requires a 5-foot sidewalk so 2 wheelchairs can pass, as well as a buffer of 3 feet between that 5-foot sidewalk. So it's a much bigger look than most of the residential sidewalks in Swarthmore. So Sarah did say that she would try and get PennDOT to bite on the smaller sidewalks, which would be great. It's much more in keeping with the.
So 4 foot is what we're going to try to use for most of
Yeah.
the residential places we're putting them in. And I would say for Chester Road, when we talk about narrowing it, it's already a very narrow road, so we're not talking about taking a lot of road, but it still might be untenable, so we got to kind of look into that. The other ongoing discussion, which we only talked about in theory, and then Jane gave us some more data regarding whether we should look at keeping Borough Hall open 5 days instead of 4 days. So we have the financial part of it down. It's not a ton of money. It's about $35,000. And I think that's the number.
That 32, 33, 34.
Somewhere around there. And it just becomes a matter of whether we want to make a change, and if we did make a change in conscious, I would think we would do it during a budgetary cycle. I don't know if we can get that done during this budgetary cycle. But anyway, we'll probably talk about that again when we spent so much time on sidewalks. We kind of tag that on at the end. But that's all I have. We do have plans to meet here, 8:30 a.m. A week from today.
We don't do long-range budgeting normally, but this is one time when future personnel expenses are going to take a leap, and unforeseenly, well, foreseenly, but probably one that we can't avoid unless by some miracle the Cadillac tax that's going to be imposed on expensive healthcare plans is repealed, which does not appear to be likely. So our cost for health insurance will go up a lot with no change it has nothing to do with our usage. It's just a tax that we will have to pay. So it's probably a good time to be relatively conservative with personnel decisions because that is 40% tax on every dollar that you have over the amount set by the government. And right now, we are over. We know that we will be over that amount.
And Jim, what's the amount, do you know offhand?
Perfect.
I can tell you what we pay a month. I just signed it. It's about $35,000.
We'll go over it. I want to say that the threshold for a family is about $25,000. And what's interesting, I went to a conference, you'll see, I'm going to talk about it. What's interesting is that it does not matter if you have employee contributions that help offset it. It's the gross cost of the benefit on which you are taxed.
That a plan that costs $25,000 or more a year is what they refer to as a Cadillac plan,
Right.
and that's taxed at, I guess that's a strong
40% on
incentive
every
to-
dollar. Right, it's
The
strong
overage
incentive.
tax.
The idea is for people not to use services. And the lower premium plans usually have either high copays or where they really get people to not use services is with deductible, with a high deductible, so that you have to pay the first $5,000 out of pocket. And of course, our plan has 0 out of pocket, so that's why the premium is so high. And while the plan can be changed for non-uniform employees, that's going to be a big decision to make because the other part of it is a negotiated contract with the police. So I'm just saying that the
I
personnel
guess
decision.
the idea of that tax is to get people's attention, and just listening to it, it's certainly gotten our attention.
Got our attention at the meeting, I'll tell you.
David, anything else for?
So I have
Jim?
one.
All right. Thank you. Planning and zoning, Elizabeth.
I don't have a lot. Planning Commission is going to be meeting this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. And they will be reviewing a submission by the college for the next building, land development building. It's the one that is being planned for basically Whittier Place and Elm, sort of behind the residential houses that are on those two streets. It will be visible
Right by the meeting house.
on the other side.
No, but the construction will materially affect the meeting house during construction, and functions in the meeting during construction. It's just an aside.
Okay. Because, yeah, it's on the other
It's on the
side of Whittier. Anyway, so that the college is submitting that, and Planning Commission will be reviewing it. The Planning and Zoning Committee is also going to meet this month, Tuesday, July 28th at 7:30 a.m. And we will be continuing our, trying to wrap up, basically, a draft of revisions to the institutional zoning ordinance. That was, our previous draft was reviewed by some of the Planning Commission. They didn't quite have a quorum, but they reviewed it and gave some comments back that have been incorporated. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that the Aging in Place Task Force is actually not meeting over the summer. They're, the subcommittee heads of each of their subcommittees are basically trying to sort of pull together materials so that come September 15th, which will be their next meeting, they will have the preparations in place for a rough draft of what they think should be in the final report. And that rough draft will continue for a couple months before it's really pulled together into the real final. Lastly, I did want to say that I spent a nice afternoon, partial afternoon, looking at the rammed earth samples with Tim and Massey Burke, who's the artist who does them. And they were pretty exciting, and hopefully that all goes through in the fall. So anyway, that's pretty much it from my report.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you. Public safety is next. Dave Cragen is not here. I don't know if anyone has a report.
I don't think there's a
Public safety.
report.
I think we've all observed that the new parking regime is slowly taking hold, and that eventually public safety will take a look at the feedback and see where we are. But I think people are getting used to it, and certainly like the idea of a phone app to feed the meter.
And our new parking meter enforcement is out, and I'd put money in the meter if I were you. I think she wrote
That's a very good message.
I think she wrote 80 tickets her
meter.
first 2 days
Feed
or
the meter.
something. Yeah, so feed the
Her hand
meter.
hurt, nice.
I kind of doubt David will meet this month. I know one of the items on his agenda is fire company budget, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be an August item, not a July item. And I don't think we're talking about parking for a while, so my guess would be, unless you hear from him, that the Public Safety Committee will not be meeting.
All right, very good. Next, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, David.
Our committee, which is Lauren, Dave Murphy, and me, met with Jane and the Public Works Foreman, Mr. Rolls, on June 25. We had as visitors to that meeting Sue Kelly and Doug Hasbrook on behalf of EAC. to talk about Little Crump Creek Park. The focus of the meeting was Little Crump Creek Park. Mr. Rose reported on the work that Public Works had done in response to the great storm of June, including moving trees with front end loaders and clearing stormwater intakes. And they worked well and fast as best they could, having consistent with there being live wires or potentially rideable wires, if that's like really an engineering term, on streets. So we had that report. We had a discussion of removal of bamboo in Little Crump Creek Park where it joins a nearby property owner. And we came to understand the equipment that would be used to remove it, both cut off the stalks and uproot the roots. The decision has been made that we would not treat it with a herbicide. Through subsequent discussions with the property owner, adjoining property owner, we're going to probably defer that effort until September to give them the last protection that the bamboo provides to their property for their enjoyment during the summer. Then we had a discussion about Little Crump Creek Park by the EAC representatives. And the discussion, interestingly, first there was the discussion of the difficulty that the DAC has now getting volunteers come to work in the park, which has been major contributions to the park over time. Volunteer efforts to plant, to clear, etc. And that led to a revelation, at least to me, and I think to Lauren today, that 9 years ago a study had been made, I think paid for by the Centennial Foundation, but made by an architectural group for enhancements that might be made to Little Crump Creek Park. And I became aware that there was an actual plan that I think the Centennial Committee had paid for, which involved twofold. First, making the Crescent Lane side of it more park-like with restroom facilities and picnic facilities, etc. And making the Yale Avenue side, which is a more natural area, including putting, as we have seen in other places, a raised wooden walkway that would take you through the wetlands for educational purposes. And so this study was done back in 2006, and the improvements in 2006 dollars suggested amounted to $589,000. So I'm not sure that the Centennial Foundation have enough money in the till, both for the municipal parking lot and enhancements for Little Crump Creek, but Creek Park, who knows? I'll never know. But I think that will, even if not that formal plan, may provide a basis by a discussion both by our committee and DAC about what enhancements might be made to the Crescent Lane side of the park. We're mindful, always try to be reminded myself and remind others that the moment you do anything to the park, you may have to make the whole park ADA compliant, which it most certainly is not as it is now. So I expect that the committee with the EAC will have further discussions over time over what, if any, changes to Little Crump Creek Park of this general kind might be considered by EAC and might ultimately be brought to council for consideration. Our committee will not meet in July. And I should say that we also, back at that meeting, we got a report on the paving that was going to be done. And the committee approved a payment of about $2,000 to the person who has this marvelous piece of equipment that would uproot the bamboo and send it on its way to the county incinerator. That's our report.
David, thank you. On this question about a report on improvements to Little Crump Creek Park, or recommendations, Is that the kind of thing that might be useful to post on the website? Just
Yeah,
to
it's kind
give
of-
our residents an idea of what things might be.
I think the EAC,
Yeah.
before you might want to digest it. I don't know if they've taken a good look at it
Yeah,
recently.
maybe, but at this point, and we're still very, very much in the process of talking about what Little Pumpkin Park really, should be. And so I feel like if this was put on the website, people would think it was gonna happen, and we're trying to figure out how to look at it. I mean, it's a very expensive plan, but there are probably some good ideas. I mean, I haven't even looked at it.
Okay, well, maybe posting that, maybe posting that report or posting that report in isolation is not the best way of focusing our residents on it. But I think we all realize what a precious resource our open space and our parks are, and I'm just thinking of ways to get the people in Swarthmore to think about these things and give their own input. So as you digest this report and your committees keep thinking about these issues, I'd also urge you to think about ways of getting the broader citizenry involved and informed.
And I would say to the thousands of Swarthmorians who will undoubtedly watch the video of this council meeting, that whatever else may eventuate from this report is that periodically the EAC puts out a request for volunteers to come and help on work days in the park. And I would hope as many people as possible who feel able to do so will come and help in that effort, because it's more than material assistance, among other things, to Public Works for all the work that the volunteers do in the park.
I was just gonna say, when I saw your email that 2006 report had come up, I did suggest to Susan and Kelly that she give it to the people working on the comprehensive open space plan, which hadn't happened. Yeah, it's sort of an odd lapse there. So I assume that she's done that. If she hasn't, she will.
Yeah.
Because it could identify things that the report in general is going to say are lacking in the entire school district, which the study is being done together, which would lead to some funding if we were providing something in that plan that was not available elsewhere, that we needed more of. So I think she was going to turn it over.
Am I correct in understanding that what Sue Kelly gave to me, which I've just reported on having read and I've just handed to Aaron, is smaller than the whole document that you may have? Or is,
I have no document. It never came to council, so I think I saw it, but I don't have a copy of that document.
That's a community design collaborative
Yeah.
document, which
Right.
is a little different than a professional document prepared for.
Yeah.
It's a conceptual idea
oh yes,
thing.
it's certainly not something of which one could go out for bids to do anything.
Okay, all right, that helps.
All right. Well, David, thank you for your report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ralph. Another 4th of July is coming. Little town of Swarthmore. It was a wonderful day, I think. We had the weather mostly held out. We got a little rain to cool things off, and to help the fire department put out the furniture fire that was so well done. One of the things I wanted to point out was that a local photographer, Andy Shelter, with the help of the fire department, got himself up on the roof of above HOM and finally in any place and took a portrait of the borough. As many people who they could drag away from getting a good position to watch the fire, and it was a neat idea, I think, and something that we're going to try to make a yearly thing to try to go forward. As you pointed out earlier, the roundabout is now round, and I think that's a great thing. I have noticed people crossing there at the crosswalks and seem to be doing very well, which is a nice thing. We are, it's our hope that the roundabout is just another step in this sort of march towards a more pedestrian-friendly community. We are going to step up and try to step up enforcement at some of the crossings, street crossings, where I know that we're moving forward with trying to get those things done, but in the meantime, we're discussions with the chief about having some officers target some of those things. I could remind the drivers in the borough that if a pedestrian is standing in a marked crosswalk, even if there is no stop sign or traffic light or anything like that, if they're standing in the crosswalk, then they have the right of way, and the drivers are obligated to stop. Right, Sergeant?
Yeah, and that's been state law. That's
Pennsylvania state law, that's not Swarthmore law. I know it's kind of confusing because most people don't want to step off the curb into the crosswalk sort of thing. You know, it's a subtlety in the way things are written. I've had many friends sort of, you know, kind of honk and wave as they almost ran me over in the crosswalks and on Yale Avenue. But so I'm feeling that people just don't understand what the regulations are and what the law is. So we're going to, as the end comes to fruition, and then now the roundabout is done, and we start to do these improvements on the crosswalks. I think it's just we're trying to create this culture within the town that people understand that pedestrians have a right of way.
On that point, if a pedestrian is standing on the curb by a crosswalk, does the driver have to stop if they're not in the crosswalk? And so
that's the way the law is written.
So that produces the
confusion.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Jane, anything from the borough?
I'd say just have a few things. One is I'm going to a meeting on Thursday that the county is hosting for the possibility of recouping costs associated with the storm. Ours were relatively limited. Our overtime was really quick. Huzzy and Rob were in and out within 3 or 4 hours, I think. Despite the Swarthmore saying they were here all night, they were not here all night. Front end loader did get a little damaged from pushing so many trees, so we had to fix that. And there's a little bit of brickwork that came off its facade on the firehouse side of the building. And of course, we still have an enormous tree that we are waiting to get rid of.
And that's our responsibility, given where it's located.
Yes,
The
right.
borough's
We did not pay for any other trees. Every other tree was a was a non-municipal
But that's
responsibility. That one
not
just happened to be
ours.
ours. Just happened to be ours. Luckily, it did not take our power out. I will go to that meeting. Again, we also are insured, obviously, for the building. I think our estimate to fix it is about $1,200, which is probably below our deductible. I did want to mention that. I wanted to mention that the Delco alert system is operational. We have a link with Murphy asked us for a link on our website to sign up for those people who hadn't. But I know I've gotten quite a few notices. The chief has used it a couple of times to let people know. I don't know if there's another tree down or something like that. So I urge people to sign up. You can get notified however you want, email, text.
One caveat to that is, and there's a box to check, I think, when you're signing up, is that if you do not check the box, they will continue to notify you until you confirm that you.
Yeah.
So I signed up, but then I got an email, a phone call, and a text.
And when you get a text, you have to respond, saying yes.
But you can check a box that says, I don't
Yes.
need to reply. And I think it's mostly because they're concerned that they were reaching people, and they were giving you multiple ways to reach people, but it can be a little too much.
Right. Also, many thanks to the county. They did end up opening up their site for extra yard debris after that, and didn't charge municipalities as long as it was storm related. So that was kind of nice. Our guys collected a lot of bags. We also hired our people for one additional day. So I think we did as well as we could. It was the worst storm since I've been here. I think Zoe probably agree. Never have we seen so many trees go down in such a short period of time. Fire company, of course, was on site all night. It was great. So thanks to everyone as usual for that. The only other thing I wanted to say, I know you're going to announce the executive session. The Community Arts Center is moving ahead with this Fine Arts Festival. I have a very brief agreement that normally I would sign. I am going to give it to the solicitor, and I think I'll run it by Ralph. I just want council to know they're going to pay for some police protection. They're going to pay to make sure Borough Hall is clean, providing liability releases for all the participants. I think it's something that we would want. They're going to take care of trash and recycling containers. We're just going to do our job to bag the meters. It became pretty clear that the reason media didn't do it, they must have known that they were a stop on the Pope train. Because remember, they told them that the Pope is coming, and nobody could figure out why that was such a big deal for media and not for us. For those who don't know, we are not a stop on the Pope train. So you will not be able to get, we are not.
No,
Media is Elwin, and then the next one, the other direction is Seeking.
Too many Quakers here.
I don't think we should read anything into the decision about why we're not selected. But actually, the Community Arts Center checked to make sure they were not going to direct, like somehow have busing or something from the other stations, and they are not. They are not encouraging people to park in a station and then they're going to bus them. They're encouraging everybody into these distinct stations, and I don't know why. But media clearly knew that they were on the stop, and that's why they thought it would be a conflict, I'm guessing.
So this is the same weekend?
It's the same weekend as the Pope will be.
Well, so we might have parking issues, though.
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. There will be-
Can't take the
No,
train.
You cannot take the train from here.
Wait, just let me.
Yeah.
But if the green is being repaved, I mean, if the downtown is being repaved to the fall, you know, there could be.
There could be 30
But we don't
spots
really
that
know.
are.
We don't-
Right.
Oh.
Oh, sure, that's a good point.
It's gonna be a problem.
That's a good point.
Of course it is the Pope.
And I-
That takes care of it.
I have
All right, does anybody have any questions about that agreement or want further review of it by council? Hearing no
We defer
problems.
to you and
James,
Sounds great.
you'll run it by
Perfect.
Scott, Bob Scott and myself,
Yeah.
and we'll get it done. And anything else
That's all I have, thanks.
from Jane? All right, if there's no other business to come before council in public session, can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to consider a personnel
I
matter?
have one more quick one. And I think we all talked around it a little bit, but for the police and the fire department and public works, for both the storm and the 4th of July, I thought everybody did a great job. I know the storms are back, in our rear view mirror a bit, but it was great to see kind of yellow tape where you needed it and people moving stuff. And we heard from Cuzzy at the Parks and Rec meeting, and we really got into what they do, what you have to do.
As I said,
The storm drains, they had to clear out.
They
It
were
was a lot of
short,
work for everybody.
and they were short-handed, the public works department was short-handed because of vacations at that time.
No, everybody did a great job, 4th of July parade, etc. That was it.
And we do appreciate it, good. And now, if there's no other
I move
business
we
to-
go into executive session.
Done.